Greetings, I'm Brian from RC Workboat Haven. In this video, I'm going to attempt to modify a state-of-the-art racing RC sailboat into a weedless hull design that could be used on local creeks and weedy areas. Now, modifying a design like this disqualifies the boat from any competitive racing. I'm going to use a Joysway Dragon Force 65. This model is 26 inches long on the hull and is easily transported in a car without taking the rig down. One of the options available was a short keel using the same weight of ballast. That decreases the ability of this boat to stand up in higher winds with this rig. So here's the model on the stand. Now this stand was designed to hold the longer keel, so you can see how much shorter this is. My objective is to prevent weed from building up on the fin keel and being hooked by the ballast, and also hooked by the spade rudder. The idea is to deflect the weed from the bow to the tip of the ballast and also modify the after area so weed can't accumulate here. When the model is set on a flat surface, it balances right here in the middle of the ballast, and the top of the bow measures 12 inches high. So this area here is very likely the center balance point of the underwater shape. The area of any addition here would have to be counterbalanced by the area aft. The first thing I did was set the model on its side onto a 1-inch square grid paper. I used a 1, 2, 3 block that is square on every corner and carefully set it along each surface and then marked the underside. I located the rudder post by using the 1, 2, 3 block resting against the 3mm rudder shaft. I divided up the aft area plus the forward area into triangles and rectangles and calculated the area of each piece. So now I'm fairly confident that the forward area and the aft area are the same at 54 square inches each. I traced out the forward and aft sections onto heavy poster paper and made sure that they fit properly. The original rudder is a balanced design. When the rudder's turned, this forward area crosses the center line on the boat, and weed could collect in here. Now I have a substitute rudder that is approximately 8 square inches and it will not catch weed. I used these patterns on some 16-gauge steel from the hardware store and cut out the shapes with a jigsaw. I made a removable rudder shoe that looks like this, and this will slide over the 1/16 inch thick steel. Now I have good clearance on the rudder and no space for weed to collect. And the hull pivots at the same spot. The measurement at the bow is right on 12 inches. And here I have the two pieces on a balance, exactly equal spacing on the top, and they balance perfectly. So I'm pretty sure I've got the same weight and the same area. So the next step is to rough up the ABS plastic with 80 grit sandpaper. I'm going to sand or file right through this black paint and get down to the bare aluminum. And using super glue and epoxy, I'm going to stick on these two sections. Then we'll take a look. So here are the two plates epoxied in place. These plates added about 1.9 pounds of weight. I also filled in a few ridges in the section where the keel goes through the hull, so it's a bit smoother there now. Now I'm going to use Krylon Fusion flat black and spray paint my work. So here's the modified keel with a paint job. And as you can see, I've got the rig all set up. My modification is designed for casual sailing, not racing, so I put a balanced wind indicator on the top. Other than that, everything is standard according to the instructions. So overall, what I've done here is take a very efficient racing model and made it less efficient. And that trade-off was to enable this model to sail in weedy areas. so the weed would slide off and so on. So how much efficiency have I lost by adding these plates on here? And how much will the weight hurt the performance of the boat? So the first thing that comes to mind is the concept of drag. So water would be separated apart and then have to run down a surface. Here's my logic. If I were to take this 3/4 inch wide piece of pine and drag it through the water, it's going to have more drag than this knife that was put through the water. In fact, the amount of surface drag on this knife would be next to nothing if you swept it down through the water. So I believe that drag depends quite a bit on the actual volume of the surface being run through the water. So we'll see how it sails. But then again, this is a bit of an experiment, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm going to be using the standard Joyce-Way transmitter that came with the basic kit. I've made a little bracket here on the handle, and I can attach a cell phone right here and record it and basically keep track of the model as she's sailing along like this with two hands. I have at least a 45-degree swing on the rudder, and the sail servo seems to be working fine. Now it's mid-March on Georgian Bay, and there's still plenty of ice. But let's see if we can take it down to the lake and find an open patch and give this model a short sail just to get a feel for what we've done. Looking good. There she goes. Whoa! Look at her go. Whoa! She's on the ice now. Wing and wing. Ooh. Bring her around. A lot of wind. I think we took on a little water, so we'll give it a bit of a drain. Let's try it through here. Now we're on a polar expedition. Oh! This is not your average RC sailing video. There she goes. She's on a run. There. Bring her around. Sheet her in. Put her up that little channel again. Oh! Oh! Will it go through? Oh! I gotta go before I get frostbite. So here we are the next day, back on the table. The conditions were very extreme for that first sail. At times the wind was gusting over 35 kilometers per hour, and it laid the hull right over, practically a knockdown. That let water come into the hatchway area, so I'll have to fix that in the future. I did have rudder control of the boat, even in a knockdown situation. Generally, I thought the boat was slightly lower on the water line. I noticed the stern seemed to be down a bit, and I had the boat very well balanced, and I just couldn't put my finger on why the stern seemed a bit lower. My keel modification duplicated the original balance of the model. But what I forgot to take into account were 4 AA batteries in this position. And that was enough to drop the stern down by about 1/4 of an inch. So to get better balance, I think that the batteries should be relocated forward here, or possibly a hole drilled and a bit of weight put up forward down below to balance the boat out. Now in the video, the hull was laid over quite a few times, and this hatch area was underwater. I took the original patch and I stuck it onto an electrical outlet cover. I did that because it's easy to fit it inside that opening and then just stick the edges down. But it doesn't work, it leaks. So I'm going to have to think of a better way to seal the hatch for the next sail. And by the way, I got my batteries, my receiver, all of it wet. The servos were all soaking wet, and the boat still functioned. Now I wouldn't want to do that every time, but it just shows you it's sort of waterproof. So overall, the Dragon 65 is a highly efficient RC sailboat. And even with the modifications I've done that hurt the efficiency a little bit, I think that it's going to be an excellent day sailor for small ponds and lakes where there is weed. So I hope to try that out soon when the weather warms up. Thanks for watching.